Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Uncultured Universe. We are the podcast where two friends show each other movies, shows, and anything else that they need to see, hear, or experience in order to get a little bit more culture in their lives. I'm your host, Joe, and I'm joined as always by the uncultured Justin.
Hello.
Today it's time to run for your life and really hope none of the extras mess up the shot. It's the 2019 war drama 1917.
This one shockingly passed me by. Um,
Yes.
I d it was not even a blip on my radar. 2019, right? That's just as humanity's going great.
I think it came out like 2 months before the world ended. Yeah.
So, like, I had nothing, no inkling of this movie other than, like, maybe, like, 1917, the latest war drama, and, that's all I knew about it, so I
Like,
didn't want to grab onto it, you know?
I come from a big war drama household. We love a little bit of The Patriot in my house. We love The Last of the Mohicans.
Mm.
The 1, 2, 3 punch of Saving Private Ryan plus Band of Brothers plus The Pacific.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
big kind of jump from the big screen to the television
All
in
you
my
got
house.
all the wars in there.
Yeah, surprisingly not as much, movies in my experience that I've had about World War One though. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like between this and, the newer Wonder Woman movie. Like, World War One's really having a moment this past decade.
It really was like, yeah, when was Wonder Woman? Like 2017 or something like that?
Mhm,
16, 17. So,
mhm.
yeah, like those couple of years, people are like the executives at Hollywood were like, "You know what? We haven't talked about it in a long time. We need to go back to World War One." People are
Just
craving it.
huge moment for just the worst looking trenches you've ever seen.
I mean, that's what
Uh
it was, right? Like, that's the crux of World War One. It was trench warfare, and it looked terrible.
Yeah. Can I also just say, whenever someone in like a TV show or a movie makes a joke about like being in the past and saying World War One, and everyone's like, "Why are you saying World War One?"
Yeah.
That
I'm sorry,
always
what?
gets me.
I'm sorry, what?
Wait, what do you mean World War One?
It's such a wild thing to think of, and then, like, I'm not at that point yet in my old man dad, journey where, like,
You haven't turned to military strategy novels.
you haven't picked a thing yet, right? You can, it's like you get super into, like, smoking and grilling meats.
Hmm.
You go, like, historical, like, American history, like, Wild West, Western, that kinda stuff, the Western Expanse, or you go, like, war, and from there, it's, like, Vietnam, World War II, World War One. My dad is heavy into World War II.
Hmm.
I got him, like, a really sick, illustrated World War II book for Christmas. But I haven't chosen my path of destiny yet.
My
So I
dad
don't
is
know.
heavy into the war contingent as well. He reads about Gettysburg a lot. He actually helped my granddad write a book. Uh, not It's not historical fiction. It's more like, here's what would have happened if this one general in Gettysburg made this decision instead of this other one. They wrote and published a book.
Oh,
My dad
wow.
did like illustrations for it. It's actually crazy.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but he also likes maritime war books. So did you ever watch like Master and Commander Far Side of the World when it came out back in like 2003?
That was Russell Crowe, right?
That was Russell Crowe. Huge in my house too.
Oh, yeah, big time. It makes a lot of sense with some of the movies we've watched. No, actually, I never got into that. Like, war never really pulls me in enough to be like,
Mm,
"Oh, I gotta see that." Like, I never saw Dunkirk either. Nolan does war. I never saw Dunkirk.
mhm,
Um, it's just never been a huge draw for me, just because, like, it can be so drab and, like, depressing and, it's kind of like how I attune to, horror where it's if it's steeped in, like, realism or, like, this has actually happened, it's scarier to me, so, like, possession movies and stuff like that. But, like,
mhm.
war that's, like, centered on, like, these giant world wars where these children, these young men, 18 to 20-something-year-olds are going and doing this stupid shit, for stupid causes, and, like, getting blown up left and right. Like, it never really pulled me in. However, watching this movie was so much fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, sometimes these war movies can sometimes blend together, and so when something is so stylistically, specific as this movie, it does stand out from the crowd a little bit, and that does kind of tie into what our miniseries is for
Yeah, let's
this.
talk about it. Let's talk about it.
So we said, "Hey, it's 2024. Let's start to get a little bit more thematic with each of our episodes. Where we're trying to have a bit of like a mini series per month. I do an episode, Justin does an episode. We've focused on an actor. We did Tim Curry back in January. We then focused on a director. We did Baz Luhrmann last month in February, and then for the month of May, we're gonna do
March.
a pivot. March, I can't count. We're gonna do a bit of a pivot and we're going to talk about a cinematography
Ooh.
with one of I mean it's safe to say one of the most popular cinematographers out there at the moment, and his work has really, I would say, popped off in the last 10 years as well in terms of like popular film. We're talking Roger Deakins.
Yeah, like
um
most people, if so, I would imagine a fair percentage of the population, you ask them what a cinematographer is and what they do, they probably have no idea. But I bet even still, like if you slice the other population and say like, all right, you know what a cinematographer is? Do you have a favorite cinematographer, or who's one that jumps to mind? And I think Roger Deakins is like synonymous with like he's the dude in
mhm.
Hollywood of just like creating these really lasting visual expanses and journeys and stuff throughout film. So yeah, he's just the dude. He's got quite the resume.
Yeah, so quick vocabulary lesson, because I definitely needed this. Cinematographer is sometimes referred to as the director of photography or the DP on set. They are essentially the person responsible for the camera and the lens that is used to record a, a the image. You know, they are the photographer of the movie, and so. Uh, from what I've read, a lot of the times the director, if they have a good enough relationship with the cinematographer, can kind of just like leave it up to them to control how a movie is shot and essentially like what it looks like. If there's enough trust there, and sometimes the director can be completely controlling in terms of like what their vision is. But I think the folks that Roger Deakins has worked with in the past really trust him to have a specific vision for the movies that he works on, and so these movies for Deakins include a lot of director pairings and collaborations. And so, if you know any of the Coens brothers movies, he did, I think, 12 of those. He's done
So many.
shit ton of those. So, Fargo, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? He did, I'm pretty sure, No Country for Old Men. Um, he also did films like Shawshank Redemption. He did The Village,
Oh
and he's
hell yeah.
collaborated. Right, he's collaborated more recently with Sam Mendes and Denis Villeneuve. So he's done Skyfall,
These
the James Bond
epics,
movie.
these epic movies.
He's done 1917, which we're talking about today, and then with Villeneuve, he's done Prisoners, which is a cool movie if you ever see it, and then Blade Runner 2049, and I think Sicario as well.
Yep.
And I need to post a correction here.
Yes, you do.
I last episode when we were talking about Roger Deakins, I said with such conviction that he
Oh,
was the cinematographer
the
for
fucking audacity in your voice
Mad
when you said it.
Max, Mad Max Fury Road. I said it like I was teaching Justin a lesson. I was looking down at him from the highest horse possible. I was like, "Oh, obviously he did Mad Max Fury Road."
And I
That
didn't
has
know any better.
since
It's
that
haunted
has
you.
become like my Mandela effect, like this thing that I was sure was the case. When in fact he in reality had nothing to do with Mad Max, from what I have researched. So I apologize for leaving our millions of fans, leading them astray. Um, and I'll be quitting after this.
You
Um,
you should. Yeah, and you know, I didn't know any better either. So you were, like, spitting that to me, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure, that makes sense."
You could kind of see it though. Something on the scale of Mad Max Fury Road, by George Miller, like in terms of just like the massive landscape shots, the incredible amount of detail. Roger Deakins maybe doesn't do as much like frantic camera work that movie is playing with, but like
Yeah.
just in terms of like the color
Palette,
scale used,
yeah.
the silhouetting of certain things, it's so Deakins, and so that's why I had it in my mind, and I was completely wrong.
Are
And
we gonna coin the phrase, "That's so Deakins"?
that's so Deakins coming to Disney this fall.
Deakinsian of how so Dickensian of you. Um,
Roger Deakins figures out that he never finished high school. He has to go back to high school. That's
um,
so Deakins.
that's so Deak but he's still, like, being the cinematographer of it, so it looks fucking amazing. So, I did a little bit, just, like, a little bit scratching at the surface, and I know this is your episode, so you get to bear the brunt of the weight
Oh, please.
of just, like, what a cinematographer is, and specifically, what is the difference between a cinematographer and a director of photography?
Mhm,
And like you said, it kind of blurs the line a little bit. But it is depending on the director, the size, and the scale of the production and all that kind of stuff. But the cinematographer might be more involved in like planning or some of the creative choices on set, choosing the overall aesthetic, maybe
mhm,
working with the director for that, and planning the camera work and movements ahead of time, while the director of photography more is kind of uh, 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 like handling the execution of it. It's more like tacit in that way versus some of the creative kind of stuff. So that was my understanding of it.
yeah, from what I can tell, based on my research, like cinematography deals with like three main areas that kind of blend together. So there, you're dealing with like the actual hardware of the camera and the types of lenses that are used. You're dealing with the movement of the camera, something that is obviously a huge factor in this movie that we're going to talk about, is like how
God,
the camera actually moves through the set and follows things. But then you're also dealing with lighting, I believe, as well. I'm sure like there's people who focus specifically on lighting on the set, but I think that kind of falls within the jurisdiction of the DP
that would make
person.
sense. They would make
Yeah.
sense, right? They Venn diagram for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, like as the movie was going on, I was like, holy shit, I'm glad we're kind of talking about cinematography and just more behind the camera work because it's just like,
Oh, it's such a snack.
how did this movie get made even?
Yeah.
Like, and kind of picking out like so the whole shtick of this movie, right? If you could call it a shtick, is that it's supposed to look like it's one journey, one shot, save for like a couple spots.
Too.
Um, too
Yeah.
specific, yeah, night and day kind of a thing. Um, and you know, trying to make that happen realistically behind the camera is just like, I wanna know everything about this movie, and I can't believe that this movie passed me by. It just to me, like, looking at the trailer, like, it looks just like a generic war movie when it's actually way more,
Hmm.
than that, and I can't believe, like, the concept never, like, brushed past my brain because it's so cool, and it's so
Yeah.
unique, and, they do it fantastically.
It's
They
a
accomplish it fantastic.
technical feat, above all else, and I wanna get into, like, the ins and outs of, like, what they actually did here, and what we're able to see versus, like, what we're able to actually, like, look up and research after the fact. Um, but I let's go ahead and start off with, the trailer here.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, let's do that. Here we go. Holy shit, right?
God,
Damn it.
it's it's too late to, like, go back and experience that for the first time, but watching the trailers for this movie were also incredible. Even when you didn't fully understand that it was gonna be, like, a big, like, one take, movie,
Linear
just
story, yeah.
as a war movie, just period, it looks so good.
God, it does, and, like, you think of war as which they do show, like, it's dour, it's brown, it's dark, but, like, I love that they show, like, it's taking place in a French countryside, so, like, there's a lot of green,
Mhm.
there's flowering trees, so I liked that juxtaposition of, like, starting at dawn, ending at dawn, there's sunlight, there's, like, underground scenes, there's bombs going off, and it's got everything that you would expect from a war movie, but it takes place over the course of 24 hours, and it's insane.
Yeah,
And
quote,
I
unquote,
and I
"real time."
I fucking loved it.
Ugh, I'm really glad you used the song too. I have listened to that so much after watching this movie. I love that song.
I had no idea what to do for the trailer, even all the way up to watching the movie. I was like, "I don't know, like, what's a general, like, war" like, it's something orchestral, I don't know. And then they get to that scene where he washes up from the river, and then he stumbles upon, the 2nd, Devons, and, like, that scene in particular is just so incredible because you're
Mm.
like, "Is he, like, in Valhalla? Are these, like"
Right, there's something, like, really quiet and kind of like, is this a hallucination about it?
Yeah.
And then, boy, does it pick up from there.
Jesus, does it ever, and it's so haunting, and I was like, "Yep, that's what I'm doing, I'm gonna do that fucking terrifying, beautiful haunting song." It's incredible. The only thing like, it made me think of, and there's a neat parallel here of, J.R.R. Tolkien
Mhm.
specifically. So, he was in World War One, and, I think a little bit before, during, and definitely after. But like in a short period of time, that's when he wrote a lot of his legendarium of the Silmarillion, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, all that kind of stuff. And he got a bunch of ideas there. But a lot of his experience on the battlefield, like poured into his writings of like Mordor and like, the Dead Marshes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like knowing that's like in the back of my nerd brain and then seeing that scene, like it sounds and it looks kind of elven and it sounds like an elven kind of sing song kind of thing that you would experience it through the vast expanse of Middle Earth or whatever. So I fucking loved it so much just because of
Right.
that pure fact.
It is like this weird, that scene is like this weird haven of peace in the midst of, like, the most chaotic movie you've ever seen, kind of. And so you do get glimpses of that in something like Lord of the Rings, where you have these, like, really quiet contemplative moments in the midst of what is essentially like a high fantasy war movie.
Yeah.
Um, let me get you some stats, and
Gimme.
then I'll have you do the plot description because I just want to like get into this,
Yeah.
and I just want to like talk fun facts and stuff. That's
Yeah.
all I want to do. Okay, so we are talking today, if we haven't mentioned it already, about 1917. Directed by Sam Mendes, who you may know from originally American Beauty, but then also more recently two of the Daniel Craig James Bond movies like Skyfall and Spectre. Um,
Very cool. Yeah.
Very cool dude. I think he's everyone in this is like an officer of the realm or whatever. So like they're all like Sir Sam Mendes. We should be saying Sir Roger Deakins when we talk about Deakins.
Oh fuck. Yeah. My God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Salutes.
Okay.
This movie stars George Mackay, Dean Charles Chapman. So many surprise guest stars, baby.
That was so much fun. Like the first one that popped up with Andrew Scott, I was just like, "Ooh, that's fun."
Andrew Scott, Colin Firth, Mark Strong, Claire de Burke is the woman who he comes across in the French town,
Yep.
uh, and then we rounded off with Benedict Cumberbatch and Richard Madden. So just like
Ooh.
some of the greats of current English cinema, Mendes was like, "Come be on my set for 5 minutes."
Yeah, because that's all we need, and then you're
Yeah,
done.
yeah. Um, Released, like we said, in December of 2019. So,
Jesus.
I mean, I must have seen this in theaters literally 2 months before COVID happened. Um, Made 384 million against a budget of 100. And
Wow.
yes, most of that budget was mud. Um,
The mud budget through the roof.
and one of the bigger things that I remember about this movie is that it was a huge Oscar player that year. So it received 10 Oscar nominations. It was actually
Jesus.
one of the front runners for Best Picture, but I think Parasite kind of swept some of the higher level
Oh,
categories
oh,
that year.
that was the year that of Parasite.
Rightfully so. Parasite rocks. But this movie did win for best sound mixing, best visual effects, and you guessed it, best cinematography by
Or
our
our
man
boy.
Deakins.
Yeah.
Um, sound. So the Oscar for sound is just best sound these days. They actually changed it up this year. 2019 was actually the last year they had it split out into sound mixing and sound editing. I
Mm.
never fully knew the difference there. I mean, on face value, it seems like sound editing is like sound from scenes to scene as
Yeah.
opposed to like sounds on top of each other with sound mixing. I don't know. I know like stuff with like war movies get nominated here a lot. Stuff with like lots of water get nominated in sound a
Mm.
lot, and so it feels right that this won for best sound mixing. There's moments of peace followed by these incredible like
Tense action.
loud tense moments of sound in this as well. um, and the win for best visual effects is actually an interesting one here, because you think a movie like this would be winning best visual effects all the time. There hasn't. This is one of the fun facts I saw. There actually hasn't been a war movie that won best visual effects for like 50 years. Um,
Wow.
and so you think about this movie, and because it's like so kind of like handheld camera. It's like very in the moment. It's giving the impression of like two continuous takes. You don't really think about it as a visual effects movie, but there's actually so much happening
Yeah.
within the frame here that is added in after the fact. So
That's what
I'm
I'm
kind of.
really curious about, of just like the physical makeup of how to make this movie,
Mhm,
because like you look at the first take, quote unquote, the first take, you go from point A to point B, and there's like 5 locations that they have to get to and traverse through. And then it's flawless looking, of just like,
mhm.
surely they didn't like make, a 16-mile set, with these snaking trenches and underground stuff. I'm baffled.
They did build a lot of trenches for this set, but what you see happen on a lot of movies these days, you see this a lot in like the making of like Blade Runner 2049 too, a movie that also came out around this time. Is like they'll have kind of the foreground be real, and then everything above eye level ish is like green screen. And so the actors are kind of going through that, and then they can kind of paint in what's happening in the far background and in the sky and stuff. And this movie in particular, 1917, it's really cool because like there are these like big set pieces that have huge visual effects on them, but then there's also little moments of visual effects too. So there's like a this is just like from my reading, like there's moments when there's like crows on the field when they're kind of crawling through the mud and stuff, and there's like maggots on like
Oh,
some corpse
yeah,
or something.
yeah.
All of these were like filmed separately and then added into the frame. So there's so many like little pieces
Sick.
that were added in. But then on like the more like macro side of things, there's huge set pieces in this movie. A couple come to mind. There's obviously the night scene where he comes across he makes it to Akus,
Yeah.
and he gets knocked out and he wakes up at night and he comes across this like massive burning church.
Oh
That
my
was
god.
actually one of the biggest like lighting rigs that was ever built for a film. So it's literally just like 5 floors of just pure lights shining down on them, and then
Mhm.
the actual fire is a visual effect. Like there wasn't any fire going on set, which I guess obviously
Oh,
they
duh.
didn't
Like,
like
you're not
set an actual
actually
thing on fire.
don't really
But
burn down
like
a church, you guys.
it looks so seamless. And then the big climactic like run at the end where he's running across the battlefield as the men are charging. There's a level of effects with the explosions there, but then they also, if you look at how they filmed that, there he's essentially running towards a truck that has a camera on it.
Right.
The truck is on like a dirt road. Like he's running on a dirt road. They actually like painted in the ground that he's running on to be a field.
That's awesome.
It's very cool. It's
So
very cool to
cool.
like look at that at the way they film that because obviously it has to be one take. You can't really like stop anything, and so like the big thing that everyone always points out with that scene is like he he trips and like he runs into a couple
He bumps
people a
into
couple
people, yeah.
different times. That wasn't planned at all,
The
but
truck
like
keeps going. It's like, you gotta catch up to that truck, man.
the whole thing with this movie is like you keep on acting until the director yells cut, and so he's just like sprinting for his life the whole entire time. Um, it's very cool. One more note on Oscars, like
Mm.
people kind of like laughed about this movie possibly being nominated for editing. I don't know if it was or not. I'm pretty sure it wasn't because people thought like there's not a whole lot of editing happening in this movie. It's
Liars?
it's
Yeah.
two takes, right? But obviously we know better because we've done a little bit of research here, and there's actually I have the facts here. This is pulling from like IMDb, so I don't know how verified it is, but like
Mhm.
it's very cool anyway. Um, so Sam Mendes and Lee Smith, the editor, stated that despite the apparently continuous shot, broken only by one interval of unconsciousness, actually dozens of quote unquote invisible edits were made, concealed by transitions through black, moves behind objects, and so on. According to Mendes, the shortest unbroken shot was 39 seconds long, while the longest single continuous shot was 8.5 minutes long.
Shit.
On top of that, Deakins reveals that a total of 48 edits were made to the film in his commentary. So
That's impressive as shit.
it's very cool, and it's even cooler because like I put in my notes watching this film. I tried to kind of keep track of where I thought like the cut was, because there's some that are a little bit more obvious than others. Like I
Yeah.
think the film, I'll have you do like the plot description and stuff, but like the film starts out with them getting their mission and they're walking, and so it's in the British trenches for a while, and then they finally make it into no man's land, and they come across this like really big crater where the camera like goes across the water,
Yeah.
which I thought was such a cool shot. Like it's one of those things where I'm just like, how the fuck did they do this? And then there's a bit of an obvious moment where they kind of you lose sight of the two characters and the camera kind of pans over up the hill
Yeah, and
after
then
them.
they're mhm,
That's a clear cut, right? Like there's
100%.
like there's some CGI elements there, and so I thought that was the first one, but going off of these notes I'm thinking like there's a couple more that happened before, I just
Oh,
don't know where.
100%. Yeah, like, towards the beginning, and yes, we'll do the plot description. Towards the beginning, when they're still in the British trenches,
Hmm.
and when they go underground to, like, meet with Colin Firth, and he's gonna give them their
Yeah,
orders, like, you can see the camera go down, and they, like, push past a curtain, and it's, like, black for a half a second. So I
yeah,
was like,
anytime there's like even a moment of blackness they probably use that
it's
as an
like there's a
opportunity.
cut, but also still it's like you talk about like lighting and stuff like that, the camera rig and stuff like that. You have to adjust for dark lighting
Hmm.
so much like in comparison to being outside. So it's like, oh, there's obviously a cut there because you have to change so many things like from a technical sense to capture the inside scene. And then going from that to outside, that's another cut. And yeah, there's so many there. So it's like, oh yeah, there's a cut, there's a cut. Oh, there's a rock kind of moving by.
Do you think
Surely
Colin? Do you think Colin Firth had it in his contract? Like, there has to be a cut right before my scene. I'm not waiting 20 minutes every single time we do this take.
yeah. Yeah, surely not like he's not gonna wait for 20 minutes, and Benedict Cumberbatch isn't waiting an hour till his scene at the end. Like,
it's it's just insane to think about. Like, there is a dog in the trenches at one point, and it's like, what if the dog did something insane? Like, obviously, the dog is
start
a
over.
professional actor, and he did perfect.
Yeah,
Um,
that dog fucking knows where yeah, he went to Juilliard, he knows what he's doing. That dog
mhm.
fucking rules.
All right. Justin, let's get into it. Give me a 1 minute plot description. My phone has been doing a bunch of weird stuff. I think it made noise earlier. Um, hang on, let me find it.
As phones are one to do.
Phones are want to do on a Friday. Okay. I will time you for 1 minute. Give me a plot description of 1917, a deceptively hard movie to describe.
Mm.
Here we go.
1917 takes place on April 6th, 1917. We're somewhere in France. It's the tail end of World War One. These two corporal officers, or whatever they are, corporate lieutenants, whoever they are, they get a mission to go warn second Devons, whatever that means, like another team who's clear across like 6 kilometers or whatever away, and to tell them like, hey, this battle you guys have planned in the morning, cut it off. The Germans are gonna sack you. So they're like, cool, we're gonna go, and then it tracks these two traveling. They go underground. They find the Germans front, and they are abandoned. So they're like, oh shit. And then a plane crashes, and then the one kid dies, and it's very sad. And then he gets picked up, and he goes and he makes it to a French town. He finds this nice lady with a baby that she found, and then he jumps into a river. He makes it there, and then he talks to Benedict Cumberbatch, and he's like, fine, I'll stop it. And then he meets his brother. The end.
Wow, 1 minute exactly. That was fantastic. Um, yes, I think you covered a lot of the major plot points here. Again, like we said in the onset, this the quote unquote like hook with this movie is that it's made to look as if it was filmed in two continuous takes. So there's kind of a halfway point where it cuts to black, but before that, it's about an hour's worth of one shot, and then after that, it's another hour of one shot. Um, and so, like I, some people think it's kind of gimmicky. I will always just kind of live for this shit
Yeah.
on like a camera level, just because I think it's so cool and it's so hard to do.
Yeah,
Like this
from
is
a
like one of the most impressive things that you can do.
absolutely, from a technical standpoint, this is a triumph that they did,
Hmm.
because, yeah, like you said, it could have been handheld and, like, very shaky Band of Brothers kinda style, whatever, but the camera movement is so smooth,
Hmm.
and it is like butter, and it's so juxtaposed with just the sheer horrors that you see throughout. A guy getting shanked up close, sticking your cut hand into a rotting corpse,
Oh my gosh.
like swimming through rapids, and like it is uh on an 11. But
They
the camera movement is just so nice.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about like subtle visual effects in some episodes of this podcast, and like there's so much of that happening here, that we mentioned before, but also like you're saying, like they kind of these two guys go off on their mission. The camera's following them the whole entire time, and he somehow cuts his hand on barbed wire,
Yeah.
and they have to show that. Like there's literally like a piece of metal in his hand that he has to pull out. How do you do that in real time? How much of that is real versus like added after the fact? Um, it is insane. It's very cool. And like, what better showcase of like the things that you can do with a camera as essentially like a magic trick,
Yeah.
than this movie?
This movie
Like,
is fucking magic. It is movie magic, and, like, I'm surprised that more people haven't, or maybe they have, but, the tumult that was 2020, it just kinda got lost in the noise,
mhm,
which is a goddamn shame because, like, this movie should be praised, for what it is. I can't remember the any, war movies from recent past other than, like, Dunkirk,
mhm.
and then this one, but, like, holy shit, like, this one is such what was really cool, and it kinda makes me come out of my shell a little bit into shell, towards, like, oh, war is like, the study of war is kinda would be kind of neat to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not super interested in a movie that's going to glorify war, but if it's more about like the personal stories related to war and like the personal struggles that these people are going to, yeah, I think war could be like a very powerful backdrop there.
Yeah.
Um, I did see this movie a couple times when it was in theaters. I I tend to get a little teared up, not necessarily at sad points in movies, but like if something is very like adrenaline
Ooh.
racing in a movie, like it'll get like overwhelming. I always cry at the end of this movie when he does the run
Oh
across the
god.
battlefield, and
Yeah.
the music just kind of like swells, and it's like, oh my god, he's saving so many people. um
He's
but
doing it.
like
Yeah.
I,
There's
I've also cried for the same reason during Godzilla and Fast and Furious
no,
movies. Like I
there's,
if
there's a thing, so I bet you also do the same. You get tingles and, like, your hair stands up on your arms when you listen to
Mhm.
certain kinds of music. That's
Yeah.
a thing that happens to you too, right? Um, Both of those are related. It's part of just being neurodivergent. Um, but, like, for real, it's a very small population or group of population of people. It's, like, less than 10% or something like that. Don't quote me on it. Um, but, like,
You're so special.
very few people can, like, be moved emotionally by something as simple as, like, a chord change or something like that, or a heightened emotional expanse. Like, obviously, yes, from, like, tear-jerking scenes, he turns to Tom's brother or whatever and says, like, "I wanna write to your mom."
Ugh.
Of course that is sad. But yeah, like, that heightened moment of him running and the music is swelling and bombs are going off and it's just overwhelming.
The
Like, I teared up making the fucking trailer because I was just like, "This song is incredible," and
the
juxtaposing that with the visuals, like, amazing.
the music is the secret weapon of this movie, I will say. It starts out kind of quiet, and then there's like a beat that develops once they've gotten their orders. There's kind of like there's almost a tick to it. It's very
Urgent.
interstellar in
Urgent,
terms of
yeah.
like clock's ticking.
Mhm.
Now you got to go. And then there's obviously moments of intensity. There's kind of like a complete shift in what the music sounds like when we make the shift between day and then he gets knocked unconscious and then it's night. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
the theme sounds completely different at that point. And then obviously it really picks up at the end. And in like the big climax where he's like racing to call off this attack, the music uh is what like takes me there essentially. Like
Oh,
it
yeah.
it the swelling of the music, and the person who did it was Thomas Newman, who is my
Randy
favorite
Newman's
composer.
brother.
No. I actually don't know if they're related. But he's overall my favorite composer. Like he's done music for so many of my favorite themes. He did if you've ever listened to Finding
They're
Nemo,
fucking cousins.
they're cousins.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
They're so
Um,
different, but yes, they're cousins.
he did what else did he do? I think he did Cinderella Man. He did the Angels in America miniseries. The guy loves an oboe. Um, but
Hey,
he is actually never won the Oscar. He's been nominated like a million times. So that's kind of like what I secretly hope for every time the Oscars come around is like, is this going to be Newman's year?
so yeah,
Um,
so Newman and Deakins crossover a bunch.
mhm,
Shawshank, Skyfall, 1917, American Beauty. Like,
mhm.
oh wait, no, American Beauty was Sean Mendez. Um,
Yeah.
oh,
I mean,
Spectre,
you start to
Sean
see
Mendez,
like kind of a
Sam
web.
Mendes. Yeah, not that guy.
You definitely start to see like a web of collaborations happening here where it's like
Which you love to see.
four or five of these guys are constantly working with each other in different pairings at any given time.
And that's how you get like really um it teeters on like Monopoly, but like for a good reason because it's creativity.
Hmm.
Because you know that they're going to create something truly spectacular.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is what you're saying. Like it's the same guys every time, but like, god damn it, it's pretty good. And
Hey, if it's
like
working, it's working.
Villeneuve is doing Dune these days too, and he's bringing in like Hans Zimmer for the score for that. Like, so that's a whole other branch of this. Like, it's very cool. I'm a big fan of these guys' works. Um, I how do we want to do this? Do we want to just go through some notes? I took so many notes watching this movie just because most of them were like, "This is so cool." Um,
It is so cool. Yeah, we can hit whatever we can talk about favorite moments and stuff. Like I fucking loved the pace at which we got the call to action.
mhm,
Because you kind of have to, right? Especially the type of story it is. It is it against the clock. Your back's against it. It's kind of an impossible kind of thing that they're asking them to do. So you have to kind of set that up and get it done right away. So I
mhm.
love that it was like 5 minutes in. It's like, here's your mission. You got to go get started. And I was like, okay, this is the kind of movie it's going to be. And then we're just off to the races. The camaraderie between the two, corporals. You get what's his face, and then the other kid from Game of Thrones,
Mhm.
doing their thing. I thought they had really good, you know, uh, wartime bud chemistry. Even though they didn't really know each other, they weren't super close, but they were still like they could
That
still
was one
work
of my
together.
notes too, is like their relationship is so interesting. You get the sense that they are like friends by necessity, kind
Yeah,
of. Like they're just put together on a lot of things. And
yeah,
so they're friends with each other. They're also kind of coworkers. Um, but yeah, I one of my big notes was like we love a movie with very clear and simple stakes. And this movie does get you going in 5 minutes and then we are off. And then at that point, uh it's the reason we're talking about this movie as part of this mini series is like it becomes a magic trick of every 5 minutes I'm thinking like how did they just do that with the camera. And so there's you start out in the trenches. It's like a video game. There's like different
yeah.
levels that they're going through, right? And so you start out in the trenches, these very skinny um spaces, and the camera I believe starts out facing them, so whoever's holding the camera is kind of like walking backwards while you're seeing them walking towards the camera. And then there's some very clever moments where they figure out how to, yeah, go behind them or
Mm,
go in front of them. Like there's like an opening in the trenches where they kind of have to go around a few people and you see the camera kind of subtly shift behind them, and now we're walking behind them, and now
yeah.
it has to figure out like how do we get out of the trenches, like how do we get into this like underground bunker without it seeming incredibly shaky and awkward.
Oh, yeah.
And
Like, going through the first trenches and all that kinda stuff is just like first of all, it's, humbling or, harrowing rather, of just like, "Holy shit, this was actually a real thing that happened." Like, what did they do after the fact? Did they fill those in? Probably because Jesus Christ. And then, following them to get their orders and then following out to the end, and then you meet the ray of sunshine that is Andrew Scott of just be like, I can't fucking believe you guys are gonna do this. Go out that way.
he's
Uh,
so over it.
yeah, and he's like, "Here's a flare gun, toss it back if you can. All right,
That's like my
yeah."
favorite line of his. He's like, "We don't have a lot of these, so if you get shot at, can you toss it back before you die?"
I know, it's so good. And then, like, it is so, terrifying because you're kind of playing part as voyeur of the camera. So,
Mhm.
like, you're going over the trench and you're kind of like, like, I'm scared to, like, look over because it's no man's land essentially that they're having to cross is,
Yeah.
what it was, and it's riveting. It is amazing.
I know they did like a bunch of rehearsals for this, like 6 months of rehearsals obviously leading up to this. It's essentially like they're filming a
A stage
play
play,
to an
yeah.
extent, right? Like we're talking about like hidden cuts. I wonder how much like in the editing they were like, okay, that guy accidentally looked at camera. Maybe we can cover that up with the visual effects versus like the camera guy fucking tripped here. We have to start this all over.
Yeah.
Like what was the line there? And then also like
So
if
you're
you've
saying
ever
you're saying you wanna see the outtakes of this movie?
I want to see like the behind the scenes of this and like how did they figure out the science of like okay, this is going to be maybe realistically like a 5 to 6 minute long take. How do we make sure we have this whole entire crew and cast on this set, but no one is within the angles of the camera when they shouldn't be? And so, like, what's happening on the ground? Like, are there markers on the ground for people to stand on, or are those going to get shown at some point? Can things get scrubbed out visually after the fact? Like,
Yeah.
it's insane. Um,
But like you said,
like,
like, they did all these rehearsals, so it's like everyone should know their place, like, this is your mark, around here, that
mhm.
kinda stuff, and then, like, I wanna know, like, the shoot schedule, like, how long like, were did they only take I would imagine less than 2 weeks to film everything, like, practically as much as they could,
Oh, I
maybe
have no
less.
idea. It would really depend. I mean, you'd think because like, yeah, realistically, like we're talking like maybe 20 takes that are 5 minutes long, on average. And
Right.
so it would really just depend on how many takes they had to do. Cause like I read in certain places, like they had to keep on redoing a take because Andrew Scott's like lighter wouldn't light correctly. And so imagine like going through the first
Eight
like 10
minutes.
minutes of trenches and then he can't get the fucking lighter to
Do
work
it again.
correctly.
But, like, at
Um,
that point, you're against your own clock of shooting because you're
mhm,
playing with outdoor lighting. So, like, we gotta get this shot within this time frame, and that's where a cinematographer or a director of photography would come into play for the shoot schedule of, like, "Alright, so from this time to this time, it is, like, 15-minute window we have to do these shots."
yeah. I
So,
think and I think that's where a lot of the budget is. I mean, like, we can only think about film from like a high level perspective. We don't really know what happens on the set of these things, but like from what I have read, it seemed like they had more like equipment standing by as backup for any situation that came up so they could just grab it really quickly, even if they
smart.
wouldn't necessarily use it a
It's
lot. So
fucking
it
smart.
it helps to have the budget here so you can have like additional resources there that you may not use, but helps in like a one take premise like this.
Yeah.
Um,
So cool. Very captivating. Tells I mean, like, the story is simple, and like you said, those are the best kinds of stories, and that lets other pieces shine. Like, the decimated city of Yakutsk is
mhm.
heartbreaking, but, like, he's just trying to get through, and it's so cool. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
I do like how they employ again, we talked about how the cast is like, okay, the two main guys and then um these like kind of star-studded casts that are each in it for about 2 minutes each. And you can kind of track the different levels, the different vignettes that they're going through based off of like who is in the scene now. Like, oh, it's
Yeah.
this is the Mark Strong bit. This is the bit where he's in the basement with the girl. This is the Richard Madden part. This is Benedict Cumberbatch's scene.
Yeah.
Um, hang on, my computer is not charging correctly. Hold on, I don't want it to shut off
Oh
real quick.
god. Don't let this happen.
Hang
Not
on,
today,
hang on,
Joe.
hang on.
I did love Cumberbatch. That was a surprise. I tried to not look at the cast. I did remember seeing, like, Richard Madden, but, like, I immediately forgot that he was in it. So when he shows up
Yeah,
at the end, I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Oh, also, there's another connection for Game of Thrones. How fun." Um, so, like, when Cumberbatch shows up, that's a great surprise.
yeah.
I love his line of just telling him just like, "And fuck off." So
They they do like kind of introduce Colonel Mackenzie as this kind of foreboding character. So you start to think like, wait, who's gonna play this guy? Because he's like this maybe psychotic colonel guy who really has the German guys on the run. Then he has to go and stop. Who's gonna have the gravitas? And then it's like, oh, of course it's Cumberbatch.
it's Benedict, Humperdinck, yeah.
What was I going to say? Okay, let me talk a little bit about the history of. I am struggling with this chord here. The history of the one take before
Ooh.
we really get further into the cinematography of it all. And so we we talked about the one take kind of being a technical feat here that this movie is obviously drawing inspiration from. It's not a pure one take film, but it's edited to look like it is. And so it's a technical feat in and of itself, but also I like that it is tied to the plot in a way. This plot is so much about how time is such a large element, and it's what they're fighting against, and so it makes sense for the way for it to be filmed is to put the viewer directly in real time with these characters, and so you can feel the ticking of the clock. It's very much like the wave planet scene in Interstellar, where you can just feel time passing by. Except this, it's trying to be as realistic as possible,
Yeah.
and so um, recently in recent movies and TV shows, it's often this technique is often used to convey like a sense of reality with time, but then you also, or at least I've seen it a lot with fight scenes.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a couple examples. Atomic Blonde from the last 10 years. There's like
Mm.
a 6 or 7 minute fight scene in like a stairwell that's all in one take. It's very impressive. And then also, if you remember the first season of True Detective, um, there's like this famous like 5 or 6 minute one shot of like Michael Matthew McConaughey going through this, I guess like some sort of like crack house or something, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah, 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 yeah.
shot in one take. And so in those examples, it's more used to convey like obviously like raw urgency and stress, but also like how much energy these characters are expending and how much they're really just like going through it in
Yeah.
real time.
Like, first season of Daredevil, the
Yeah,
hallway scene from episode 2 or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Similar
Yeah,
thing, similar thing.
yeah.
And then like a totally different example, but one of the recent examples that I had of the one take shot. Did you watch The Haunting of Hill House?
Yes.
There's an episode in the
Oh,
middle of it
in the funeral home, right?
that is filmed in one take.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know um how much of it is like 1917 where they maybe like did some editing to kind of make it seem like it was one take, but the coolest part about that show is that show deals with two separate timelines of this family.
Yep.
And so like they're the present timeline and then 30 years ago when they were all kids. And the coolest part about that one episode is that they're filming this funeral, but then they're also going back in time to when during this like storm at the house when they were kids, but it's all made to look like one take. So like you'll go from the funeral home and then it's all on the same set. You'll go kind of like down the hallway and then it'll be back in time in their old house.
I do remember that.
It's such a cool way to do that.
So cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Genius. Yeah, like, it can be used as, and it should be used as, a storytelling device, to aid the story rather. Because like you said, it can be kinda gimmicky if you overuse it or if it just becomes synonymous with, like you said, like fight scenes or something like that. I know there's one, like the original Old Boy, like there's a fight scene, like, in a hallway that is, like, famously, a one take kind of a thing. But yeah, another feature length was, did you ever see, you saw Birdman with Michael
Hmm.
Keaton? Yeah, that one's like a one take kind of a movie too.
Yeah.
Um, Same kind of thing. Super cool. It's used sparingly, which I appreciate. Because I guess because it is so difficult to, to accomplish and do it well rather,
Hmm.
I'll say.
Yeah, one of the early examples too is a lot of Alfred Hitchcock's earlier movies, which is an interesting thing to think about because he didn't have like a digital camera to edit with, and so they're literally doing a similar thing that 1917 is doing, is where they're like tricking the viewer with like takes, but they're meant to look like one take. But he's literally like cobbling together physical reels of camera, and so they couldn't physically film past like something like 8 minutes or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so he has to use these like techniques that you still see being used today with like passing behind things or yeah, ways to like trick a take, trick an
Yeah,
edit.
yeah, and it's using the environment and things like that pretty creatively. Like you said, when they're coming out of the big hole in the ground and the
Hmm.
camera kind of like purposely kind of lags behind so you can kind of like see the crest of the hill. There's another one where they're kind of panning around them and they like pass in front of a rock. Um, yeah, I think there's another cut like that where they pass in front of a rock in the river scene.
Yeah.
Um,
The there's moments of darkness where you can tell like they probably did a take here. The moment when he jumps into the river, I think they actually use like a different camera style. Like you can tell like a lot of that is filmed differently and maybe has a
mhm.
lot more CGI elements because obviously he didn't like jump off an actual waterfall.
Yep.
And so there's like a moment for a take there, but then there's a lot of like cool practical moments where it's like you're saying, like it just kind of like passes behind a tree. And they probably use that as a cut too,
It
but
was
they make it
genius.
look seamless.
Yeah. Yeah, like, as soon as he jumps off the bandwagon with that other company with Mark Strong's guys, and he goes to, like, walk across the bridge. So cool. Like,
God,
this
that
movie is so cool.
it's so cool. The part in the truck was actually what I kept thinking about the most when rewatching this, as like just literally in terms of like what the hell is the camera doing here? Because you're doing this one take shot. He essentially it's after Blake gets killed, and so it's just Schofield left. Schofield, Schofield,
Schofield.
Schofield. And so he's kind of like sad and despondent. He gets picked up by this other unit of men and he gets into the back of this like covered truck with them. It's extremely crowded. They're all just kind of crammed together. The camera gets in with them and then
Yeah.
is also filming like behind some of their heads. So you it must have been like the truck had to have been able to like come apart on the side so that like the camera unit could kind of fit in.
Yeah.
Maybe like I love to think about like actors in a shot being a part of the crew that also holds the camera too. Whenever you hear about something like that happens, like
Uh,
once you're off frame, like you're now holding the camera, looking at someone else. It's so cool to think about like how like manual a special effect like that can be.
mhm.
But I think in this case, I would bet that that truck could actually like come apart and they like essentially stuck the camera along the side of it and they were filming it from that angle. But then when he gets out of the truck, they have to quickly like put it back together because then it shows the whole truck again.
Yeah.
It's magic. I don't know.
I would watch a full feature of, like, behind the scenes, like, the planning. I wanna see the sketches and the whiteboards of, like, setting this up.
uh,
I would eat it
okay.
up. I would eat it up.
Um, let me go through a couple more highlights from my notes, and then let's talk Deakins real quick. I'm like I'm like
Just
holding this
gushing.
this charging cord on my computer because it's been running out of battery this whole time and I
Oh
haven't
god.
noticed and it's like slightly broken. I'll let you know if we
Oh
have
my
to
god.
cut.
We're up against the clock,
We're
like we're
gonna
in the
do one
movie.
take. We're gonna do one take.
That's funny because
Um,
we actually do the podcast in one take. So
I know.
we're like Roger Deakins and Sam Mendes.
Yeah, it's not that hard. Um,
It's not that hard.
I'm a sucker for a long take every time. Bam, Colin Firth. Bam, Andrew Scott. Bam, Mark Strong. Bam, Cumberbatch. Bam, Madden. Uh, uh, the camera crowing across the water in that one scene is so cool. I love how
Wild.
they do that. It's got to be on some sort of rig because there's no like ripples on the water. The rat scene is insane when they're underground in the trenches. That's got to be like a CGI rat. So another cool example of like essentially a character inserted into the frame with them that they have to react to.
That
And then
giant
also an
fucking rat.
explosion.
Yeah. Yeah, that had to have been a
Um,
cut too. That was kind of a shake up kind of a thing, like wild.
I think the makeup effects when Blake gets stabbed and subsequently dies are
Oh,
very
yeah.
cool
Yeah.
because again, it's all in
Oh,
real time, but the blood drains out of his face and he ends that scene with basically like a grayish purplish face. How do you do that? Is that
yeah. It's simple. It's gotta be, yeah, like
that's got to
touching
be
up
computer
digitally.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
No,
magic of computers.
they actually, like, made him lose blood. He had, like, a little pack on
Yeah.
behind him, but they eventually put it back in.
If I were them, I would simply just avoid the buildings, like stop going into buildings. Um, it's so cool how you expect the movie to be one cut, and so the actual real cut that is in the middle of the movie kind of comes as a jump scare in a way. It's when he
Oh,
goes
yeah.
up to confront the sniper that's been shooting at him, and they have this like half second face off where they both shoot at each other. And he gets shot. He shoots the sniper, kills the sniper, but then he gets shot in the helmet and basically falls down a flight of stairs and then cut to black for like 5 seconds. And it's
It's
such
like,
like
"Is
a
he dead?"
crescendo of music too. It's so cool. It's such a
Yeah.
flex.
I missed, like, where he got shot at. I was like, "Are they gonna show him when he got shot or where he got shot?" And then I guess, like you said, he got shot in the helmet. Like, I think that's why you wear your helmet, kids,
Yep.
in case you get shot. I do love the pickup shot after that. It's nighttime, and he wakes up suddenly, and, like, the camera goes outside and then kind of comes down and then
Hmm.
follows him, and he's running with the explosion of the lights and while getting shot at, and he's running towards the inferno built, church burning. Like that whole
There's
sequence is
flares
wild.
going off. That's why it looks like insane and alien while he's running, and there's like flashes of light. It's flares going off in the
That's
sky,
all right. That's
and
flares. Yeah,
so
flares, not explosions. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like these like blasts of like sunlight that look like searchlights for him
It's
almost.
crazy.
You're like, what the hell is happening here?
So
Yeah,
tense.
and then the poor wayfaring strangers scene mixed in, going blending directly into the 1600 men run, is just like perfect epic cinema for me. No notes. And
Yeah,
then I think the
I
ending is great.
it's great. It is, he accomplished his mission, he did it, and it ends how it started with him leaning up against a tree. It's, incredibly, emotional and sad and
Yeah.
harrowing, but it's really, really great. But yeah, like the scene where he comes up upon the second, Devon's team, and they're all being just so still, and
Hmm.
it's like, "Is this a dream? Did he actually die?" Because, like, he sits down against a tree, and he's being
Yeah.
very still, and they cut back to him, and it looks like he is dead. It's like, did he not is there's, like, 10 minutes left of movie, what happens?
Hmm.
But so cool. So, so, so cool.
Yeah. Um, Hang on. I'm fiddling with my power source again. Say something, vamp.
Switching to switching to auxiliary source, to auxiliary power. Go,
Switching to
Captain.
auxiliary power. Okay, I
Yeah,
got it.
got it. We
Let's
have
talk
power.
Deakins. Let's talk Deakins real quick, and then we can get into end games. I keep losing power. Okay, so Roger Deakins, Sir Roger Deakins, of
Respect.
the British Isles. Um, Little history on him. He started out as a photographer before getting into cinematography. Makes sense. The
It's
guy
a good
knows
parallel.
how to frame a picture.
You sure do.
Um, he's known with collaborations with directors like the Coens, Villeneuve, Mendes, also Norman Jewison, who we covered with Moonstruck. Baby, he did a
Amazing.
couple movies with old Norm. Um,
That's Norm.
he did not do Mad Max Fury Road. Put that on my goddamn tombstone.
I will.
Um, the article that I was reading on him says that he is sometimes so sought after as a cinematographer that his involvement in a film can secure the casting of major stars. And so these agents are like, Deakins is going to shoot you. He's going to make you look good. And then all of a sudden you've got like DiCaprio, like
Yeah.
it's so cool to like cinematography can like be a bargaining chip here.
I wonder if there's any actors that are like, I'm not doing it unless fucking Deakins is attached. Deakins is
Yeah.
attached? Yeah, sign it. I'm done.
Oh
I'm in.
shit. Um, in my experience, when I think about Deakins, he means just huge scenes with incredible clear detail. So like these sweeping like landscape shots, like we see in this movie, um, sweeping camera movements, like we see as well. Very dynamic camera without being like frantic or hyper in any way. It's very like smooth,
That's what
like we see.
that's what I was talking about earlier. It's just the camera work is just so silky smooth and
Hmm.
not and that really speaks to the prowess of the team and Deakins of just like they planned this out to the molecule of
Hmm.
the equipment and everything because like a shaky camera would take you out of the scene or take you out of whatever and it's just so it's remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's always like impressive, like placement and movement of the camera to the point where, especially with a film like this, it makes you wonder how did he do it? Like that's kind of what you're left thinking.
Yeah.
Um, um, Okay. The only other thing I wanted to talk through is his history with the Oscars, and so I sent you the video before this of like the 13 times that Deakins lost the Oscar before he won for Blade Runner 2049, and then he won for this movie a couple years later.
Amazing.
And then he's been nominated since then, so the guy's on a roll. Um, and then I wanted to talk through something he mentions in his Oscar speech as well, which I thought was cool. Specifically for this movie, he thanks his focus pooler, which is a job that I didn't realize was a job. But there's apparently someone on a movie like this who controls the focus of the camera as it's
Yeah.
moving, which makes sense. Like, obviously, you would have to.
Mhm.
Um, Imagine that as another dimension to all of this. Like, not only do you have to follow all of this action in these continuous takes, someone has to constantly be twisting that lens or however they do it these days to make sure that what they want to be in focus remains in focus. And
Sharp as
so you
shit, yeah.
literally have to be moving the camera focus along with the elements in the film. It's such a cool unnoticed art form in and of itself. He mentions in his speech, like, you'd only notice it if he did something wrong. You never notice what he's doing is right.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Um,
Like,
it's
it's all science, right? Or,
yeah.
mathematics in a sense of, like, knowing the place of the camera and the talent and, Deakins and these heavy-hitting directors of photography, like, are uh, operating at such a high caliber of
Mhm.
just like they know where the camera's exactly going to be, where the talent's going to be, and that they can do the math. We're going to move the camera 30 feet this way, up 12 degrees that way, and turn it to the left a couple degrees, and the talent's going to be this way, so we have to adjust it. This like it's down to a science. It has to be
Meanwhile, every time I take a picture of, like, my cocktail for these podcasts, I'm like, "This is the
blurry as
shittiest
fuck.
thing I've ever seen."
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Justin, what are you drinking today?
This is something I rarely do. Or I will rarely say, "I'm never gonna make this again because this is hard to drink." Um,
Like,
it
bad or
yes, it is bitter, much like Mother War herself. So I was trying to think strategically of trying to put myself in the place of, turn of the century, early, 1900s, around the wartime, looking at old cocktails. I landed on something called I found something called a penicillin, which is one of the oldest mixed drinks that you can make. But I didn't have all the things that you need for a traditional penicillin. So I kind of improvised, much like you would do on a battlefield. So this is called a battlefield penicillin. This is 2 ounces of blended bourbon, 3/4 ounces of lime juice, 3/4 ounces of honey with some ginger, and then a little bit float of a different bourbon on top. You're supposed to do it with scotch and lemons, and like you're supposed to actually make a honey ginger syrup. But I used what I could because I'm on the battlefield, and it is hard to drink, but it's good. But it's hard to drink.
you yeah, you're probably drinking like a king compared to what they had.
Mm,
Um, okay, very cool, very cool, very, like, down to earth, very relatable.
yeah.
Um, I made, a twist on the cocktail, the Roy Rogers, that I'm calling a Roy Roger Deakins. Um,
Oh,
and
I
so
love it.
a typical Roy Rogers is actually a mocktail from what I've seen. It's like Coke plus grenadine and, like, cherry.
Mm.
This actually is you mix together sweet vermouth, rum, grenadine, and an egg white with Angostura bitters. Shake that up in a cup, and then pour it over Coke. And then the egg white bit will kind of like rise above the Coke bit, and so it looks kind of like, if you squint, Roger Deakins, who has like the best head of like white hair
Yeah.
that you've ever seen on someone.
Oh
And
my god.
that was my inspiration.
Genius. I didn't even think of that to use the man's name.
Mm. Well,
Roy Roger Deakins. That's great.
as always, I have to give special thanks to Jonathan, who actually helped me with the mixing here.
That's great. Yeah, I
Um,
mean, like, this was also inspired by Ryan. She's like, "You need to call that a tetanus shot or whatever," because after he stuck his fucking hand
oh
wound
my gosh!
in
And
the
then
Germans.
he goes
Yeah,
through
like,
like a river. Ugh, like he's gonna lose that hand.
that hand's gone. Yeah, he can't keep that. They won't let you keep that.
Like, all of my notes during that scene are just like all caps. Like,
Eh,
oh
eh,
god.
eh. Yeah,
All right.
incredible.
Very nice. I'm hanging on by a thread here, but we're gonna complete this in one take. Why don't we get into end games?
Great. You gave me the name of the title, and I said that sounded like a Fallout Boy song title. So here it is. Great.
Very cool. Um, Here on Uncultured Universe, we do an end game after the end of every episode, a game that we essentially make up for the other person to participate in. And we've had some pretty dumb ones in the past. This one's up there.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm just warning you. Uh, when I was trying to think up a game for 1917, I wanted to do something related to one take, like the movie. until I realized that every episode we do is one take and we don't even make any edits because
Nope.
it's not that hard, Deakins. So I
Fucking
scrapped that and jumped to the next best thing, which I'm calling one take, more like hot take. Here's how it will work. I'm going to pick a movie that we've covered on this podcast and give a hot take that I have about it,
okay.
meaning a slightly radical opinion that maybe goes against the mainstream, yada, yada.
Yada yada.
All you have to do is judge my hot take on a scale from ice cold boring to nuclear hot, original, and interesting, using whatever adjectives you may choose. There's no winning or losing here, but my goal is to get as many hot scores out of you as possible. Are you ready to play one take more like hot take?
Let's do it.
Okay. I think I have 8 examples for you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Starting with Lost in Translation. We're going to go back to around this time last year.
Yeah.
My hot take. I would be interested in seeing Scarlett Johansson and Anna Faris switch roles.
Ooh. Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of a hot take,
Yeah.
because I think ScarJo's great in this. I don't know if no disrespect to Anna Faris, but I don't know if she could, you know, do the
I'd be
job. I mean,
interested.
it's kind of a hot take. That's a hot take.
Yeah, it's a hot take. Okay.
Hot
Here we
take,
go.
baby.
That's 1 point. The Social Network. My hot take. This should have been filmed Muppet style with Jesse Eisenberg as the only human actor.
You know what? I've heard this concept before many times, and I don't think this movie would be as compelling with Muppets. I mean, it would still be great. It would probably be greatly improved. That's kind of a cold take. That's not that hot of a take.
Cold take. You can't win them all.
No.
Okay. Number 3. When Harry Met Sally. My hot take. I think a remake of this movie in modern times would be a disaster.
I agree with you 100%. That's a cold take. Like, and I think we talked about it during the episode. It's like you can't do
I
this.
kind of expected that one. That was a ground ball to you.
Now, if you said if you do a remake or if they did a different style of the movie and Billy Crystal did the scene in the deli that Meg Ryan does, I would
Gender swap when Harry Met Sally.
yeah, and have him have to like have an orgasm in front of all those people. That's a hot take.
When Sally Met Harry. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4, Labyrinth.
Mm.
My hot take. I think a remake of this movie in modern times might be really cool.
It's a hot take.
That's a hot take.
That's a hot take. Like, that movie is beloved by so many, like, specific nerds.
I think they could
Um,
do some cool stuff with it. I think
Hollywood is
keep
scared of Muppets nowadays. I don't think they would do it.
no, keep like the physical effects in there. Don't make it like high frame rate Hobbit bullshit, but like I'd want to see like a bigger budget behind it. And I want to get more into like the labyrinth of it all.
The
But yeah,
movie's weird and it's kinda bad, but it's kind of that's what makes it good. Hot take.
hot take. Okay. All right, number 5, Black Swan. My hot take. Nina is not dead at the end of this movie, but her need for perfection is. And I think after the movie ends, she gets better and quits dancing.
That's kinda lukewarm. That's in the middle, I think. It's open to interpretation, so I could see it that way.
Heard that
Um,
before?
kinda lukewarm. Yeah,
Okay, thanks, Justin.
I know.
Number 6, uh, bringing it to our latest episode, Romeo plus Juliet. Hot take. I think Leguizamo is the most interesting performer we've covered on this podcast. And I say this knowing that we have done an actor miniseries on Tim Curry.
I know. I gotta say that is a nuclear take.
Yeah, to be specific, we have covered Leguizamo in Romeo and Juliet, Moulin Rouge, and Tu Wong Fu.
Yeah, but
Uh,
like
that's
you
like
said,
me.
you mentioned we talked about Tim Curry already 2 months ago, and the miles ahead of interesting actors. That's a nuclear hot take.
I think we should have this conversation.
Mm,
Um, okay,
you
2
might
more.
not like it. Okay.
2 more. Number 7. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. My hot take. I think there should have been a 5th turtle brother who was separated from the rest of them at birth and raised by the gang of hooligans, and his weapon is a gun.
Eventually, there is a secret fifth one, and it's a girl. I
Is
can't
there
remember.
really?
Yeah, I can't remember her name. But that is a hot take. Don't you dare sully my sweet foursome.
No, I never would. All right, last one, Interstellar. My hot
Mhm.
take, I understood everything in Interstellar the first time I saw it, and I think the concepts that they cover are fairly basic.
That is the hottest nuclear take you could have ever said in your entire life. That
That's
movie is
black
so
hole hot.
that movie yeah, right. That movie is so fucking complicated, and, but it's so good too. But that's a hot
Yeah,
goddamn take.
fantastic. Well, I will tally up the score, and you will get it in the mail in 7 to 8 business days. Justin, thank you for playing One Take More Like Hot Take with
That's
me.
right, that's right. We did it. That was fun.
Ah,
I didn't know what that game was gonna be, so that's great.
yeah, neither did I until yesterday.
Um,
Um,
where we're going next, we're going in the polar opposite just to show the breadth of Deakins, what he can do. We're talking about a classic, maybe a cult classic, I would say, of a flick.
this
We're
is
going
yeah,
bowling, folks. For next
ooh,
next next entry, for the next episode, we're gonna be talking about Big Lebowski,
a
the Big Lebowski.
a movie that I shockingly have not seen yet, yeah.
There's gonna be a lot to talk about, mainly in just the sheer differences of film when we look at 1917 and The
Yeah.
Big Lebowski. But there's still some great shots in there, that I can't wait to for you to, take in.
Yeah, normal podcasts would have done Deakins chronologically and talked about Lebowski first and then 1917 and, like, the growth, between those 2. Not us. We're gonna do something insane and talk about, like, how you can still see the same techniques that Deakin uses, between these 2 movies and what makes a movie a Deakins movie.
Well, yeah, what makes it that special level of Deke? Give him the he gave him the Deke in this one. This is another Cohen brothers flick, that you talked about. He's a common pairing between the 3 of them, rather.
Yes.
So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see, coming up, in the next couple weeks. And then, for April, I'm not really sure what we're gonna do. We still haven't really decided. Joe is gallivanting across the world as he, usually does.
I'm
Uh
giving you a bit of a blank slate for April. We'll walk through that.
I I'm gonna go ahead and kind of tease out the idea that Ryan and I have talked about doing. We're gonna do another Ryan episode where she jumps on. We might start and meld other media into it, and we might do a movie meets a book.
Oh.
We might be talking Marley and Me in
Oh
April.
my god. Has Ryan not seen Marley and Me?
I haven't, and I've never read the book. She's read the book 1,000 times and has not seen the movie, actually, I don't think. Or maybe she has. But that one's gonna be, like, scorched earth. This is her getting back at me for showing her Interstellar.
Yeah, Marley and Me is a lot. I'm very interested to see what happens there.
Yeah. So, that's coming up for April, and then we got the whole rest of the year to kind of tackle music, TV, all that kinda stuff. As soon as Joe gets back, I said, "We're gonna do some Bob's Burgers." It's gonna be great. 2024, looking up, looking strong. Catch us on all the socials at Uncultured Universe, wherever you get it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think we're on Twitter. Yeah, we are. TikTok, all the places. Get your podcast there too. Check us out and like, review, and subscribe. Do all that shit, and we'll give you a thumbs up. And Joe will send you a picture of his cat. Anyway, that's been us. Catch you guys later.
Bye.